you need to have cornerstone content and then you create cobblestones from it. And what a cornerstone
Nice.
content piece is, it's that big meaty piece. So we'll stay on the, the theme of podcasts here, because that's a really easy example to give to podcast listeners. You create a podcast series, that's the heavy lift. You're creating really rich, robust content on a regular cadence with that. But to your point, not everybody is listening to a podcast. That doesn't mean that's where it stops. You can then take that podcast and you could probably create like 30 different content pieces. Some of them are very bite-sized, but out of the one episode, right? Because, okay, if you record it, you now have a video that you can post on YouTube, on your website. You can then create video shorts that you can post on social media and on your website and use in email campaigns. You can create audio clips. You may take some of those topics and turn them into a webinar. You can create articles from it. You can create multiple social posts from it. The list goes on. And it's really about looking at those cornerstone content pieces and saying, okay, how do I chip away at this? Or taking a research report, for example. Let's say it's a 25-page research report that you paid for Forrester to help you create. There's really great content, most likely in that report, but a lot of people don't have the patience to read 25 pages. You want to make sure you get your money's worth out of that and the leverage. So now how do you create those bite-sized pieces? And maybe it's social media posts and articles and podcast episodes and things like that, where you're taking bits and pieces of that information and you're kind of spoon feeding it to people. And so maybe they didn't read the 25-page report in one sitting, but maybe over 3 months, you gave them all of the key information that was in that report. And they've absorbed all of that. Maybe not all of it, but they've absorbed pieces of it to carry forward. That's a win. And I think, it's overwhelming to think like, oh, from a demand generation standpoint, what you're telling me is I have to create a ton of content. The answer is yes, you do, but it's not as overwhelming as you think it is if you take the slice and dice approach, because you're not reinventing the wheel with each content piece.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder.
Right.
So with that, what are you most passionate about with what you do and the work that you do and the clients you work with? What's your passion?
My passion is helping companies figure out how to grow. I think, having been on the corporate side, I know the pressures on a CMO or a VP of marketing's shoulders when they come into an organization and they're expected to be, the magic bullet that suddenly moves revenue forward. And it's not as easy as that. There's so many factors that go into it, right? Like product market fit, the ability of the sales team, brand awareness, there's many levers and dials that go into that. And so I love helping companies figure out from a marketing perspective, like, how do we do our part to support this growth mission and ensure that we're putting the right tools and the right content in front of the right people to optimize results for the organization as best as we can. And I think, the piece of advice that I have for marketers as they think about how can we impact the results for the organization is making sure that your digital footprint becomes your best sales rep, because of the way that buyers and prospects look at the purchase decision these days.
I really like that. I like that digital footprint being your best sales rep. I think that's a really cool way to think about it. There's I used an analogy before in a networking event, but I talked about Wayne Gretzky, and I don't even think he actually said this in the end, but it's a quote that he gets, like his quote, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I always think about that from the perspective of you miss 100% of the interactions if you're not giving the right message. So there could be people that come to your site, your content, that you've completely missed, and they will never interact with you, and you've missed that opportunity. Yeah, I think that's really awesome. That digital footprint is your best sales rep. That's a really cool way of thinking about it. So what you're passionate about that side of things. What drives you mad about the industry?
what drives me mad. I think the constant need to focus on today. And what I mean by that, and I'm guilty of this when I was in the corporate world of being like, we need leads, we need them now. I think it's very short-sighted when, revenue is down and the company leadership and the sales team come to marketing and they're like, we got to drive more leads quick. We're not going to meet our numbers. It's not realistic, especially like if you're talking about like a SaaS technology or an enterprise sale where the sales cycle takes months. I don't know how you think a marketing program being implemented now is going to impact your sales tomorrow versus 18 months from now. We're not miracle workers. We want to do our part and help the organization thrive. But we start doing random acts of marketing because everybody's coming and saying, can you do this? Can you do this? And it gets very reactive. And what I mean by random acts of marketing is we're no longer focused on the long term and the strategy. We're suddenly like creating campaigns to bring in leads. Well, those leads are crap and they never close. It never actually impacted, the upcoming revenue number anyway. But hindsight's 2020, right? And then on top of that, as a marketer, for years, we've been told you have to justify the dollars that you're spending. And sure, we'll give you more budget if you can prove it works. And so we have over measured things to the point of it being a detriment because we're measuring things at times in ways to make it look like it's performing better than it is. And not because people are like, I'm going to fudge these numbers, but it's more like we're looking at the vanity metrics and individual factors versus the big picture. Because you can't measure every touch point that a buyer has now. I mean, if they are reading your social media posts, like let's say they follow you on LinkedIn and they see your content all the time, if they never like or respond by commenting on your stuff, you think they don't see it, right? I can't tell you how many times I talk to someone and they're like, I see your content on LinkedIn all the time. I'm like, good to know. Had no idea you saw it all the time because you've never liked or commented on anything. But here they were following it and finding it valuable. You can't measure that.